You were in private equity for 7 years. How many hours per week did you work? And what was the true comp progression over those 7 years?
I would say the average over those 7 years was 80 hours a week. And that's not me like trying to sound cool or flexing on it. Like that's just, there was a lot of work to be done, and we all took pride in getting that work done. Like you're in the trenches with a bunch of people, and you're getting compensated for it. Like at the analyst level in private equity, depending on how big your fund is, you're probably making anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 a year. At the associate level, you're probably making anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000 a year. VP level, again, depending on fund size, you're making somewhere between 500 to $1 million. And then once you get to the principal and managing director ranks, you're making $1 million plus. The real comp in private equity is not in your annual cash, though. It's in carried interest, which is the profit share that you get on the fund and the fund performance. And that is where people have made extraordinary amounts of money. And even for me, not having been there for that long, that is where the vast majority of the wealth that I have associated with my time there is tied up. It's in the fact that you get, a private equity fund, the standard model is 20% of the profits that the fund generates. So if you have $1 billion fund that doubles in value, you made $1 billion in profits, the managers of the fund get to keep $200 million roughly. And that gets split up. Obviously, the founder of the fund gets the vast majority of that. But like trickle down $200 million to a group of 10 or 15 people, like everyone is getting a whole bunch of money on these deals. And so that really is the bigger thing. But that vests typically over like 7 years. So you're getting that over long time periods. That's really like a retention tool for keeping people in the industry.
What do you think about the carried interest loophole?
They've been trying to get rid of this loophole forever. I mean, Obama talked about it. Biden talked about it. Trump has talked about it. No one's getting rid of it.
Explain what it is.
So the carried interest loophole is the idea that carried interest, that money that you're making, the profit share on the fund, gets taxed at long-term capital gains rates rather than ordinary income. So all of your like cash comp, your salary and your bonus every year, they'll like say you're making $1 million as a VP, that gets taxed at ordinary income, right? Like you're probably, if you're in California or New York, like you're paying 50% at some point on that $1 million. But then you make most of your money, most of your actual cash that you are generating in this line of work is like these huge lump sums from these payouts when you buy and sell companies. And that could be $10 million, $20 million, and it's getting taxed at long-term capital gains. So you're paying 25% on it total instead of 50. And people are always debating whether or not that cash is like investment income that you should be paying long-term capital gains, or if it's just part of your income. My personal take is it's pretty clear that it's income, and I get why there are people that don't want it to go to income. It's a huge, huge difference maker in your long-term wealth creation. But to me, it's pretty hard to argue that it's actual investment income. Like, yes, you put your own principal at risk when you raise a fund. You might put, maybe a fund has 5 or 10% of their fund capital is the manager's money. But like, it's hard to argue that the money you're making out of this is like real investment income on that. It's clearly like it's for your work, it's income.
When I looked into this, it seemed like it was a scapegoat for people to call these fund managers evil and that they're the problem and that they're why we're spending so much money and they're the responsible for the national debt and why we don't, get as much tax money and they're the ones cheating the system. Meanwhile, a lot of it goes out to Social Security. That's
going to make you favorable.
It's the truth. When you look at how much Social Security generates versus how much they pay out, the math just doesn't even work. And the carried interest loophole is like 0.00000. Like there's so many 0 and then 0.1 of that versus anything else that you could do that'll make more of a difference than getting rid of that one thing.
I mean, it's tiny, right? Yeah. Like it's one of these things that it's a great talking point for politicians because it's so easy to say, like, look at these mega billionaires and they're not paying their fair share on this thing. It's like, it's an obvious political talking point that really doesn't have a huge impact on the national budget, right?
Not
like
at all.
Just as you said, I do think that it's just like, it's always going to be something that keeps coming up. And then what you're going to go and look at is the donations and where a lot of these politicians get a lot of their campaign donations from. And there's always some big private equity guys that are funding, $50, $100 million into these super PACs. And so like, Who do you think is not getting, who do you think is like pushing the background agenda on this stuff, right? It's the people that are funding the money. So follow the money on it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to change.
It's something like, I think it's $4 million a minute is how much we go in debt as a country.
I think the new tax bill is interesting for a few reasons. I think the whole gambling change is really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen this?
I have.
I mean, we're in Vegas, so it feels very relevant. But this is kind of crazy because the new change in the tax bill to how gambling is treated sort of craters the professional gambling industry.
So I'm told that if your main source of income is gambling, then that doesn't apply. This is more meant
Really?
That's what I'm told.
Who are you told that by?
Twitter.
Oh.
No, but here's the thing. In my defense,
reputable.
In my defense, there are tax experts who have analyzed this plan, and they say, based on our interpretation of this, if you qualify as a professional gambler, where this is your full-time main source of income, this is not going to apply. It's going to apply to the people who are trying to deduct gambling losses against gains casually as like a side thing, not their main source of income.
It's probably more important for people who are non-professional, though. Like the change in the rule is that it used to be that you could deduct 100% of gambling losses. So
against your gains.
Against your gains. So if you made $100,000 and then you lost $100,000 gambling, you didn't have any tax that you had to pay because it was offset. Now you can only deduct 90% of gambling losses. So if you make $100,000 and you lose $100,000, there's only $90,000 of that loss that you're allowed to deduct. So you have a $10,000 taxable gain. So you have to pay taxes even though you have no money from your gambling.
Why my confusion was why they did that and who it benefits or what their reasoning was for it, unless they just don't like gambling. And that's their way of, curtailing that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't understand the logic behind it. The one interesting second order effect from it has been, have you seen all these prediction markets that have blown up and are going viral? So I'm an investor in one of them called Kalshi. And Kalshi has blown up in the news recently because they offer prediction markets on sports games.
Correct.
Which basically just looks like the same thing as going and betting at a sports book, but it's not regulated by the same entity. So they're regulated by the CFTC. And as a result, it's not considered gambling losses if you lose money on it. It's a financial contract. It's a prediction. It's an event contract. And so if you want to still do your same gambling now, but still benefit from the 100% offset of losses versus gains, you can just do it on these prediction markets and benefit from what it used to be.
See, I'm wondering who's slipping this into the bills. It's always someone who has an agenda who says, hey, we're gonna give you some funding, but we want you to slip in this paragraph. And this is going to benefit us.
It's the Kalshi execs, man.
We don't know. Dude, it could be prediction markets going in and saying, hey, this. But you would think the Vegas casinos
You'd think so.
would really be against this. But in reality, I don't think it impacts the average person because they're playing with $1,000 here and there. If they win or lose a few hundred, I don't think
they're logging it.
They're not. And the casinos aren't keeping track, unless you have a player's card of oh, you won 100, but you lost 200. And
you don't think it's impactful for all the people that are doing DraftKings, random sports betting on their phones now, all of this. I mean, gambling has boomed over the last few years as it's...
I think negligibly, realistically, even when I go to the casino, I don't log my gains and losses. I feel very, very... And I live here. You know? I don't gamble often.
You would just put in $100 and if you win or... it pays for dinner or you lost it all.
Yeah. But you're talking about casino gambling. What about just on your phone? The number of people that are just doing sports betting on their phone now
I think of my friends that do, and I don't think that they care about the tax consequences. I think that's kind of a very niche thing. Most people are just W-2 people that get paid out and they get their taxes withheld and okay. They don't actually go and even investments. They don't consider realized and unrealized gain.
You mean they don't care about the tax? They're just not going to pay taxes on it?
No, they're just not thinking about it.
But not thinking about it is fine until the IRS comes and you get audited and you haven't.
If they're not I guess our friends aren't gambling at levels where it's going to be more than $100 in tax.
I hope so. I feel like gambling is one of those things that's it been increasingly legalized and everyone's talking about all the benefits from not drinking. It's the new hot trend of people are drinking less and less. And you're okay, but they're gambling way more.